Welcome into Hockey Sense, everybody. Brought to you by First Community. It's our Friday tradition. Great to have you along with us. We've got lots to get into. I'm going to switch things up a little bit this week. Joe Bowen's going to join me, a longtime voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll get into his story. Hey, I mean, he's been broadcasting games for 43 years, something like that. And for the first time ever, he asked for a day off so he could watch the Notre Dame game. I want to get his take on it. But then we'll get into the Maple Leafs as well. We'll talk to him about the Leafs, who are coming off a pretty bad loss. You know, when you know the Maple Leafs lose, because that's all you hear about the next day. They win, it's a celebration. They lose, it is the exact opposite of a celebration. What would that be? They lost 5-1 to Columbus their last game. Columbus has quickly become one of my favorite teams to watch. I enjoy watching them play. They're kind of the underdog, although they lost last night 7-4. You can't be giving up 7 goals if you want to win. Obviously, you got to tighten things up defensively, but the night before they only gave up 1 to Toronto. And they'll get back on track. I don't have a problem with that. And Dean Evison should be in the conversation for sure for the Jack Adams for Coach of the Year. Blues lose last night to Vegas 4-2, so they split the 2 games with Vegas, but they lost the game in Utah. If you take care of business against the teams that are below you in the standings, and then if you split with Vegas, it's not quite as bad. But because you lose to Utah, now that second game against Vegas, the game at home becomes so crucial. You can't afford to lose that, and they did. And they didn't have their best effort either. I don't know what else to say about it. They had 8 shots on goal through 2 periods of play. It's not good enough. We've heard the coach, Jim Montgomery, and we've heard previous coaches say the same thing. When it comes to coaching this particular team, consistency, urgency, all those, little words that you hear that, point towards losing hockey. When you're talking about consistency and urgency and second and third effort and winning 50-50 battles, you're not complaining about that when you're winning. When you're losing, and those are the things that make a difference between winning and losing. Last night was tough to watch just from that standpoint. I mean, the Blues are going to have to put together some significant runs here to even have a chance to make the playoffs. And that won't even guarantee that you get in. I mean, Calgary wins again last night. They've got a few games at hand still. It is what it is. But it's time to get going. Like, let's go, So if you look at the Blues, I think they have 33 games left in the season, something like that. They're going to have to go like 22-8-3 or something. I think they have 33 games left. So, and that is doable. I really believe that it is doable. But you can't be losing to the teams that are below you in the standings, especially when you have, difficult games coming up like they did last night against Vegas, like they do with Dallas coming into town. It is good to see Kyrou continue to score. This guy's had a balanced season. I don't know what his total numbers are going to look like. Can he get to 35 goals? Can he truly, flirt with 40? Can he get there? I don't know if he can or not. But you got to give him credit. This guy now is plus 12 on the season. And I don't always read into plus minus. I mean, you think about guys getting minuses when you're on the ice, when you're giving up empty net goals. And he's been on the ice for a lot of those too. So his plus minus could actually be a lot better. But, everybody's being given different responsibilities. Some guys start more shifts in the offensive zone. Some guys start more shifts in the defensive zone. Some guys play against the other team's best players. Some guys get matchups against the other team's third and fourth lines and maybe the third defensive pair. So there's all different things that kind of come into it. And, last night he ends up being on the plus side of things. I think he's had 1 minus game since December 20th, talking about Jordan Kyrou. 1 minus game. And so for everybody who criticized this guy when he was really struggling, finding his 200-foot game or finding his game defensively, you just got to give him credit now for, finding his way on the plus side because he is getting it done. He had a nice goal last night. The goaltender, Samsonov, he didn't play it overly well when you look at his positioning on the goal, but it was a nice shot. Post and in, whenever you make that shot. And, I was talking to even Paul Stastny, who was at the game last night, and he was commenting on the way that Jordan Kyrou is playing. And he said that was a hell of a shot. It's a nice goal. It is interesting. I think for the last couple of weeks, we talked about how the chemistry between Holloway and Kyrou, and with Braden Shen playing his best hockey of the season, that it's now given the Blues some balance up front because now you can generate two offensive lines back to back in your top six that can go toe to toe with anybody, with Thomas and Buchnevich, and then whoever's playing on the left side, Neighbors, Saad, whoever it happens to be for that particular night. But now we've gotten away from that because Thomas is struggling with confidence. Buchnevich isn't playing his best hockey, although Jim Montgomery felt like he had his game early in the game yesterday against Vegas, and then he elevated him back up into the line with Robert Thomas. I would imagine that was the plan all along. You're not just going to put Buchnevich on your third line and keep him there. I think sometimes you're trying to, wake a player up a little bit, get his attention, and get him to play better, ultimately. That's what you're looking to do. Buchnevich, in my opinion, I don't think he's 100%. Maybe we'll hear something about that in the coming days. Maybe we'll hear something about that later in the season. But the way this guy is playing, and you've seen how he's played in the past, he is not 100%, in my opinion. And I would imagine we'll hear something on that very soon. The Blues could be getting some help with Nick Leddy coming back. He's got this issue that he's been dealing with throughout the course of the season that's allowed him to only play 4 games so far this year. And, I don't want to be specific with the injury, but I've talked to him a lot about it. This guy feels pretty much 100% now. He's got no pain. He's got no lingering effects from the injury. He feels like from a conditioning standpoint, he's where he wants to be, not where he needs to be, where he wants to be, to get back in and play. And I think he's ready. I think he wanted to play last night. And obviously the coaching staff, along with the training staff, they're going to make that decision. They know way more than I do in terms of, when he's truly ready to get back in there. But I think it's only a matter of time now before you see Nick Leddy back on the ice in a NHL game. And, I know they've got some pretty good chemistry and pairings going right now. But with that being said, you get a player of his experience and his ability to skate the puck, or skate with the puck and skate and defend against speed and all that type of stuff that Nick Leddy has done throughout the course of his career. I think if he's ready, you got to get him back in there. Is that at the expense of Tyler Tucker, who joined us last week on Hockey Sense, presented by First Community? Maybe. Ryan Suter turned 40 years of age 3 days ago, and he's played every game this season. I don't think he's a guy that you take out of the lineup right now, and nobody else is really a consideration when you look at Fowler and Parayko and Broberg and Falk. So Tucker would probably be the odd man out. And that's just what it is. And then you got to make a decision. What do you do with Perunovich? What do you do with Tucker? Somebody's going to have to go eventually. They've been hanging on to Perunovich all season long. And it's pretty obvious why. They feel like they would lose him on the waiver wire if they were to let him go, and they don't want to put themselves in that position. It's always nice to have depth. It's always nice to have NHL bodies around. But that may come to an end, and that could play a role also in terms of when they activate Nick Leddy. But he is ready to go. He wants to play. He's chomping at the bit, and we'll see when he gets back in there. Philip Broberg's interesting. He suffered that injury the other day in practice, but we got word pretty quickly thereafter that it wasn't serious and he was going to be okay. He'd skate the next morning, and then they'd make a decision in terms of how he felt and if he passed whatever necessary tests that the training staff wanted to see and whatever, and how he came out of that skate, whether or not he'd play last night. Obviously, everything was fine. He played, and it was good to see him back in there. But I want to get back to seeing the Philip Broberg that we saw early in the year, and it doesn't necessarily have to be point production. I mean, he started the year off red hot. He had points in his first 6 games of the season, and he was playing incredible hockey, and even after that. But then he suffered the injury. That really derailed him. He missed 12 games. It's a lot of hockey to miss. Then he came back in, and I thought, he came back in and played pretty well. But I want to say he's got 1 goal in his last 28 games. And 1 point in his last 10. I think he's got 1 assist in his last 10. And that is not the type of production that you need. It's not even about what you want. Now, I know this guy doesn't play the power play, and I just wonder when that time will come where he eventually finds himself as a power play guy. But he does get chances, And, maybe not as much the last couple of games, but how often do you see him get these backdoor passes or seam passes and he's streaking down the left side and just hasn't been able to beat NHL goaltenders on a regular basis? But he has that ability. We all know he can, skate and defend. He's got a great stick, very smart, very heady player. So there's not much to criticize in terms of Philip Broberg. But I just think when you look at his overall package and what he brings to the table, his overall skill set, I just think he's too good of a player to be this silent and this invisible on the score sheet. You got to produce. It's no different than a top six offensive player. People always say, well, how do you define top six? Well, to me, it's defined based on production. If you are given a top six role and you play in a top six role for a specific team, you're expected to produce. If you don't produce, you're not really a top six player. It may look like you are on paper, but if you're not producing or helping the team, then uh, what are you doing? When you're given that type of opportunity. So the competition's fierce right now for the Blues, obviously, just for power play time. I mean, listen, Thomas and Buchnevich, they're not used to coming off the ice when you get on the power play. They're not used to being on the bench when the power play starts and maybe getting the last half of a power play. That is difficult for these guys to deal with, I think, mentally. And all you have to do is look at the body language of a guy like Robert Thomas. You can see the frustration when he's coming off the ice. And, listen, I've been around, the NHL for a long time, but also coaching hockey and coaching youth hockey for a long time. The one thing I hate is bad body language, and sometimes guys just can't control it. There's bad body language that makes you a bad teammate, and there's bad body language where you just show your frustration. And I think that's what you're seeing from Robert Thomas right now. You're just seeing his frustration. The puck isn't going in for him, although he did get a goal late in the game last night. Just being around the net, he got the goal. And so maybe, with a player like him, you hope that really gets him going. But I think if you find a way to get him back on the ice with that number one power play, I think that is going to give him an opportunity to rediscover his confidence, get those touches, get opportunities, get chances. But sometimes you have to earn it, and I get it. And I've said over and over, this is one thing that Jim Montgomery will do. He doesn't care who you are. He's going to play the guys that he feels like are going and that give the team the best chance to win and are demonstrating the type of game and work ethic and everything else that comes with it, preparation. Whoever's deserving of it is going to play. It doesn't matter what your past numbers have been, how much money or have been, or how much money you make, where you were drafted. He doesn't really get into all that. But I would say, I think the point has been hammered home, and it's been received by Robert Thomas. And I do think it's time to get him back on that number one power play unit, get him on the ice with Kyrou and some of these other guys, and give him an opportunity to help the team from an offensive standpoint. You're losing too many games right now under the given situation with how you're utilizing your top offensive players. If you're winning every night, I get it, but you're not winning every night. So I think maybe it's something you should look at, or maybe they will look at. Last night at the end of the game, you've got Justin Falk up top. It's a one-goal game. Somehow it was a one-goal game. I don't understand how it was a one-goal game. Just based on the number of shots the Blues had and, just kind of the lethargic effort that we saw from them last night. And even talking to Steve Ott between periods, you could sense and hear his frustration in his voice. Whenever a coach is talking about being on the wrong side of, one-on-one battles, that is not a good sign. That is effort-based. That is attention to detail. And when you're not getting that second and third effort, which is how you win battles, I don't care what level of hockey you're talking about, you better have that second and third effort. That is an issue. So you could sense that frustration with him. But I would like to see Cam Fowler up top. I think he's your best option there. He's your biggest threat to score along with Parayko. But I think he's a way better distributor than Justin Falk. Falk's a right shot. Fowler's a left shot. Should that really come into play in a 6-on-5 situation, everyone can have their opinion on that. But I just feel like Fowler is probably best suited for that. And he didn't have his best game last night. Unfortunate turnover in the first 20 seconds of the game. You can't have that happen. But with that being said, I don't even know if Mark Stone, put the puck where he wanted to place it on his shot. He looked like he almost missed it. It's a one-on-one situation in on the goaltender. I can't just sit there and say, well, Joel Hofer should have made the save, but that's a save you kind of need at that stage of the game. And it wasn't like he went bar down or made some crazy move on him one-on-one and there's nothing the goaltender could do. I thought maybe that was a savable shot, if that makes sense. How many times have we seen Joel Hofer allow a goal on the first shot of the game? It's had to have happened 3 or 4 times this year. You don't like seeing that. And again, untimely, maybe unnecessary, unfortunate for sure, turnover by Fowler. You just don't typically see that at that stage of the game. Really wasn't under any duress. And it's easy for me to say that. But at the same time, you would have liked to see a save there in that particular situation. You get a save there, the whole game changes. And maybe you get some energy in the building. Not a whole lot of energy last night. It was great to have Curtis Joseph there. Tonight, you've had the class of 2025, the St. Louis Blues Hockey Hall of Fame. That's going to be a lot of fun. Whenever Brett Hall comes into town, it's going to be a fun night. I look forward to tonight once again. It was great to interview Curtis Joseph during the game last night, kind of have a long-form interview with him and hearing from so many Blues fans on social media who enjoyed hearing from Curtis Joseph. He was such a fan favorite, although his time here was cut short because of the situation there with Mike Keenan. It would have been great to have Curtis Joseph play longer here in St. Louis, but regardless, he went on, had a great career. We'll talk to Joe Bowen about his career in Toronto, and that's what Curtis Joseph is doing right now. He is a ambassador for the Maple Leafs, so we'll get into that coming up with him very, very soon. Looking forward to that conversation with Joe Bowen. Jamal Mayers will also join me. We'll kick around a number of different things. We're getting closer and closer to the trade deadline. I know it's some people's job to drum up interest in the trade deadline and start speculating about this guy and that guy, but we're still, for me anyway, at least 2, maybe even 3 weeks away from really starting to know what teams are thinking, what they may or may not do. Are they going to move on from this guy? Are they going to keep this guy? Are they going to look to extend this guy? Do they need a center? Do they need a defenseman? A team who may feel like they've got a chance to do something in the playoffs today may fall completely out of it 2 weeks from now, and it may change their entire complexion in terms of how they look at the trade deadline. So I think we've got a little bit of time before we get into that. But I look forward to the conversation coming up with Jammer and with Joe Bowen. Hey, as always, Hockey Sense is brought to you by First Community. Hey, get your son or daughter signed up for Little Blues. I've been telling you each and every week, it's the best way to introduce the game of hockey to your son or daughter. No better way to do it. They've been doing this now for years, and Little Blues would not be possible without First Community. So not only is First Community your best option in terms of banking, they support hockey like no other. And that's what I love the most about our friends over here at First Community. And here's the deal. It's a reasonable cost. It doesn't cost a ton of money, and you get, I think, 6 or 7 ice times. But the best part is it comes with all your equipment. So you don't have to go to the hockey shop and get little Johnny or little Susie outfitted with skates and, shin pads and elbow pads and shoulder pads and pants and all that type of stuff. You don't need to do all of that because you just sign up, and guess what? You put your sizes in there when you sign up, and everything comes in a box delivered to your front door. Sticks, skates, everything. Now, remember to go get your skates sharpened. I've had more parents show up to Little Blues, take their stuff out of the box, and they're like, oh, I didn't know I had to get the skates sharpened. Yeah, you do. You got to get the skates sharpened. So again, all the sessions take place at Centene Community Ice Center, and that's the official practice facility of the Blues. And at the end of the program, they even have a graduation, which is cool. Each child gets recognized individually. They get a goodie bag right from First Community. So First Community, keep doing what you're doing. And we love the fact that you support hockey here in St. Louis. There's no doubt about that. Dirt Cheap Fun Fun, your one-stop party shop. Download that app and get all the great deals that they have to offer. They call them deals, but they're so good they call them steals. And that's how good these deals are. So check it out. Don't sleep on the party and paper goods that they have there. It's not just the beer, wine, and booze and all that type of stuff that they have, and the walk-in beer cooler and all the different locations, and the fact that some locations have a drive-through and some locations have curbside assistance. You don't even have to get out of your car. You can do your shopping on the app. It's that simple. Dirt Cheap Fun Fun, baby, your one-stop party shop. Having Valentine's Day parties, birthday parties, anything else, hey, check out the great selection of party supplies, paper goods, all that type of stuff that they have at Dirt Cheap Fun Fun, your one-stop party shop. They got way more in there than you would ever expect. It's absolutely incredible. Four Hands Brewing Company, taking St. Louis hockey to the next level, one craft beer at a time. I love it, man. Every time I turn around, Kevin Lemp and his crew, they're sponsoring something. They're doing something to benefit the city of St. Louis. Hey, check out that Mango Lemonade, the Cam and Strick Podcast Hard Seltzer. Check that out and do it today. It's absolutely incredible. It doesn't taste sweet or too sugary like you have with some of these other seltzers. It's the best seltzer on the market. All these tasting rooms that you have with our friends over here at Four Hands Brewing Company, the one downtown, 1220 South 8th Street. They've got that beautiful new location in Kirkwood. It's incredible. Check that out. And then, of course, the one out there in Chesterfield, you bring the whole family out there. Big screen televisions, huge area, lawn area for the kids to play soccer and different things. It's so much fun. Spring will be here before you know it. I know it's I just got my coat on still, man, because it's so cold outside, man. I can't get warm over the course of the last month here in St. Louis. And I know a lot of other people are dealing with it. People in New Orleans, people in Florida, everywhere, they're dealing with the cold weather and the snow. But again, Four Hands Brewing Company, proud sponsor of what we do here on Hockey Sense. David Novak, man. This is my guy right here. Nobody does roofing like Blue Note Roofing. 314-920-5713. Let him come out and give you that free estimate. This guy is absolutely incredible. He's the best when it comes to roofing, gutters, soffit, fascia. Doesn't matter what it is that you're looking for. He is absolutely unbelievable when it comes to giving you the best customer service, giving you that free estimate, letting you know what you do, and more importantly, what you don't need. And if your roof is over 10 years old, check with your insurance company. They may not pay for it. So if you're getting close to that 10-year marker, if they say, hey, once it gets to 10 years, we no longer cover it. Now is the time to call David Novak. Let him come out and look at it and get that roof replaced while the insurance company is still going to pay for it. How important is that? 314-920-5713. David Novak, Blue Note Roofing, baby. All right, Joe Bowen, longtime Maple Leafs announcer. Holy Mackinac! He's next. You're on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Don't go anywhere. I was just in Toronto the weekend where the Maple Leafs hosted Philadelphia on that Sunday night game. Went to the game, give a big shout out to Chief, hooked me and my family up with tickets. And my son was in town for a hockey tournament. And it was cold. I think it was -8 to -11, depending on where you were at.
That's normal.
And exactly. I mean, Celsius we're talking.
Yes.
In Canada. It was so crazy, though. The weather was so bad in St. Louis, Joe, that I got snowed in. I couldn't leave Canada to come back to St. Louis because I couldn't get into. I thought it was supposed to be the other way around. I said to my wife, "Are we to Toronto?"
We handle it a little better. Yeah, we handle it a little better up here. We've had more experience.
That Air Canada is something else. So, can you fix that for me?
God knows we've tried. We've tried.
It's so funny. I mentioned that on the podcast I do with Cam, and I got more messages from Canadians said all their experience, but a couple of them gave me this private number that you can call because I couldn't get a hold of anybody. They say, hey, this is the number. Keep this in your back pocket. So apparently I got a private number now. So how you doing, man? I mean, listen, you've been doing this for so long, and do you live and die with every game? Can you handle the losses or poor performance easier now, considering you've been doing this for over 40 years?
Well, I think you get experienced at the fact that it is a really good league. You have to understand where your team is sort of in the pecking order. And then you understand why, they'll play really well and go on 4 or 5 game winning streak. And then they'll lose to a team that's well below them in the standings. And you say, well, okay, you either got out goaltended or didn't play well or didn't respect the opponent enough. So I think I don't live and die with each thing. Now, when the postseason arrives, of course, that's a bit of a different situation. And this team has gone through a long stretch without hoisting the Stanley Cup. So, and then, the disappointment of having first round exits over the last number of years when this team was one of the elite in the National Hockey League makes it frustrating. But hey, I've got my Notre Dame Fighting Irish t-shirt on. And you learn that in order to be disappointed, you have to get there first. And that's the situation.
And we'll get into that. I've had family members that have gone to Notre Dame. My son has had hockey tournaments there the last couple of years.
Great facility.
I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And some of my
My youngest son got to go to a tournament down there too, and it was great.
it's amazing. And I've had close friends who have played there. We've got 2 St. Louis kids who we've coached here with our AAA Blues program who are playing at Notre Dame right now. So it is just, Notre Dame, near and dear to my heart for sure. I want to get into that. But, I was talking to Ryan Suter yesterday. He just turned 40 years old 3 days ago. He's the oldest skater in the NHL. Marc-Andre Fleury hasn't beat by a few months. But in terms of skaters, he's the oldest skater. Brent Burns is going to turn 40 later on this season. Then you got Corey Perry and Ovi and these guys who are going to turn 40 soon. And I said, how do you stay engaged where it's still fun? So I'm curious for you, has it ever not been fun for you? How do you make sure you're having fun every day when you go to the rink as long as you've been doing it?
Well, the last real job I had was 5,000 feet underground hard rock mining in Sudbury, Ontario. That was work. That put me through school.
Yeah.
But that was work. And it also convinced me that it'd probably be a lot more fun to do something else. So, I mean, I have really lived the dream. I mean, I go to a hockey game and I tell everybody what's going on. I mean, you can't really have anything that's more fun than that, unless, of course, maybe you're playing. But having said that, no, I mean, I still enjoy it. I will know when I can't keep up. My health has been good, so why not keep pushing the envelope and having fun? The other aspect is that I have had the absolute pleasure of working with some unbelievable people. And for 27 years, I've worked with Jim Ralph on radio, and we continue to do that now. He is, and we lost his counterpart. I've said this many, many times that Ralphie is the Bob Uecker of the National Hockey League. Minor leaguer, self-effacing, wonderful sense of humor, never takes himself serious, and a great analyst. So I've had the pleasure of working with him and Harry Neal and a number of other great people to be in the booth with that have made it, fun. It's like, really, it's like going to a bar with a bunch of your friends sitting talking about hockey, and you actually have to make sure that they know that who has the puck and who's scoring the goals. So that part has been just a blessing to be able to do that on a nightly basis. And so far, so good. We'll see if we can't keep going. And I've got a young son who's doing the Sudbury Wolves games play-by-play. He got to do a period with me during a Next Generation game that we had in Toronto. And maybe I can hang on to the job long enough and hand it off to him. Wow. Apparently, that's worked fairly well in St. Louis.
Has worked very well. I mean, did you know Dan Kelly pretty well?
Yes, I did. Yep. I started in 82. I knew Dan was starting there. I actually filled in for him one night on KMOX and did a blues game back in the mid-'80s. Got paid U.S. cash and haven't paid any income tax on that yet. So take that, Mr. Trump. Yeah, come up here and try and get us going here, but you're not getting the money back from me.
He may be listening right now. You never know.
I don't care. We got hockey sticks up here. We'll take care of him if he decides to come over here.
Hey, but Jim Ralph, you guys are great, man. And I hear a lot of your games because it's on the Sirius XM radio. I'm driving, and it's super enjoyable. I've been to some events that Jim Ralph has emceed too and spent some time. He is hilarious when you get him in that environment also. But you've done television. Obviously, people know you as doing radio now, but which do you prefer? Which have you enjoyed more? Do you like radio more than TV?
My bank manager really likes TV.
So does your wife, I imagine.
I've got 3 ex-wives. Yeah, probably. Yeah, they do too. You know what? They're 2 different mediums. Television, obviously, you get more notoriety, or you're going to be seen and whatnot. It's easier to do TV. You don't have to be as graphic. Radio, I've told my son doing this because he does radio, that it's a much easier transition to go from radio to TV because you can do less. They can see what's going on. On radio, you hope that you can paint a visual picture that if they close their eyes, they might actually be able to visualize where everything is going on and who has it, where they happen to be on the ice. So I mean, and you're on radio. You're the producer, director, and talent. Whatever the hell is going on the air, you're pretty much in charge of it. When you're doing television, the guy in the truck is pretty much in charge of what's going on, because as soon as the play stops, the replays start, commercials, whatever happens to be going on, he's directing the actual how you're doing the game. So they're both great mediums. Obviously, television pays a little bit more than radio, hence my bank manager enjoys that a little bit more. But I've enjoyed doing both. I cut my teeth on radio, and we're doing that now, and enjoying every minute of it.
I was interviewing Curtis Joseph on television broadcast last night, and the conversation was
what a jerk he is, eh? What a miserable person that poor guy. One of my all-time favorites.
Just kept talking.
Absolute, one of my all-time favorites.
I almost gave my producer, it's funny because you said that. I almost gave him a heart attack. I just kept talking over the play-by-play. John Kelly got the period off for the most part for a good chunk there. But, there was so much reminiscing and so much to talk about with Cujo. It was great to see him. And he's still an ambassador with the Leafs, so you see him around. But he's going into the Blues Hall of Fame. That's why he's in town, and he's going to go in there tomorrow night.
Oh, well, please give him my absolute best. It was a huge move by Ken Dryden to bring Cujo to Toronto. I mean, just 4 seasons that he was here with Pat Quinn, but boy, those were 4 wonderful seasons, and he was instrumental in that. You can't find a better human being, I don't think. He has done so much off the ice as well as on the ice. And that smile lights up a room. He's one of my all-time favorites, and I can't be happier for him to be going into that. I am, speaking of which, I am upset with the Toronto Maple Leafs that there isn't a Toronto Maple Leaf Hall of Fame. We have the Hockey Hall of Fame here in Toronto, and that takes precedent over lots of things. But we do not have a Toronto Maple Leaf Hall of Fame. And I think, we honor people by having them go to the rafters and jerseys retired, but I wish we had one here in Toronto and have it a part of the arena at Scotiabank Arena, or even somewhere special elsewhere in the city, because I think that the history of this franchise outdates almost everyone else.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. And listen, Mike Caruso has done a great job with the Blues of kind of heading this whole thing up. This is the 3rd class. And the best part about the Hall of Fame, and I'm on the committee, and I love voting for it every year and going to the event, but the best part, Joe, Brett Hull comes in town every year for it. So that's all you need to know, right?
Oh, yeah. They're characters, and I think once they've kind of hung the equipment up, they're a lot more vocal and loose to talk about things that went on and their careers and everything, instead of giving it the hockey's speeches after practice or whatever. But yeah, I think it's a great idea, and good on you for being a part of that and having it going so well in St. Louis.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great for sure. Who's the best goalie in Toronto right now? Is there a clear-cut number one? Who's the guy?
Well, before he got hurt, I think that Anthony Stolarz was probably the number one.
Yeah.
But I think at the beginning, before they acquired him, they were going to give that honor to Joseph Woll. Both have played very, very well. Stolarz is back on ice now after having a procedure done on his knee. So the Leafs goaltending could be a huge advantage going down the stretch, as long as Stolarz can come back and play the way he did before the injury. So that's going to be a strength this hockey club has had, but almost every team in this league got to go through 3 or 4, sometimes 5 guys in the depth chart, because the position doesn't allow the Grant Fuhrs to play 72 games he played in St. Louis that one year, I think, or whatever.
79 or something crazy.
Yes, it was ridiculous. And play every night. What they do to their hips and knees now with the different methods of playing this position puts a great strain on those parts of their body, and injuries become a focal point of it. So I'm not sure we're teaching kids to play the right way. I mean, last time I checked, Fiercy played pretty well with his stand-up style and everything. The butterfly and all of the other things that go with it sometimes are put a great strain on a lot of pieces of the body that aren't meant to move that way. But I think that both those two, Stolars and Wall, will give the Leafs a real good 1-2 punch, the same way that the Boston Bruins benefited from it for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think even Cujo had a couple seasons where he played north of 70 days, something like that.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
you know, what's your approach on the radio? Are you hesitant to be critical? Can you be critical on individual players when the team isn't playing well? Does the organization say, hey, like, let's back off a little bit, or are you free to kind of call it the way you see it?
I've never once in 43 years had anybody from the Leaf organization say, "Hey, you got to tone that down," or "You got to don't be doing that." I tend to be more critical on a play-by-play basis. Bad pass, goal given up. Guess what? That's hung on you. I don't think that we get to the point where we are trying to drum somebody out of town. And I think you have to be fair. I mean, I've always been given that tag of being a homer. Well, I say, yeah, I am. I'm not going to. I want them to win. I'm sorry. That's part of it. I have to do 82 of their games. I'd like them to go 81-1 and then be really critical of the one they just lost. But I think what you have to be is you have to be an objective homer. You can't, especially in this market, you can't whitewash if someone's not playing well or someone made a bad play. You can't. And I think that that is the way that Jimmy and I try to approach it. Yeah, we want them to do well. We want them to play well, but you have to be objective to the point that if somebody is not playing well, the statistics speak for themselves, and you're hoping that individual is going to improve or be critical of a pass or a bad goal. Then yeah, you have to be I think objective about it, while still hoping the guys do well and pull out a win.
Do you think it's tough for players to play in a Canadian market? You look at how loud the situation is in Vancouver right now. My son's a huge Mitch Marner fan. I've always enjoyed watching him play. I mean, he was dazzling when we saw him live. Obviously, when we went to a game a few weeks ago when they played Philly, he had a great rush and brings the crowd out of his seat. He knows how to play to the crowd too, which is what I enjoy about him. He's almost like an entertainer. Sometimes he knows when he has the crowd's attention. Like when you see, does he take too much heat? It come playoff time? Like, is it fair, some of the criticism he's taken? Like, what's your take on a star player like him? And you see him staying in Toronto beyond this year?
Boy, better. They'd never, if they traded him at the deadline, they would never get anywhere near the return. So he's definitely taken this. I'm playing for a new contract, but I'm playing really, really well. He is a marvelous, marvelous talent. And, I think that under the circumstances that they're going to have to do something. But I may have forgotten the question you were trying to get to me. It was,
Does it
being critical, and is it tougher to play in Toronto?
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago, yes, because there wasn't as much coverage in other markets.
Mm-hmm.
If you went into the South when first Tampa and Florida, there was two guys showed up as beat writers, maybe, and there wasn't the coverage, so you were kind of sheltered and hidden. I don't think that's the case anymore. There's the national media in the States has certainly gotten on to hockey. I think that the coverage all over is there. In Canada, of course, we had the original 6 teams, and then the Montreal and Toronto, and those two markets kind of carried the ball a lot. But I don't think that now that's the case. I think if the same thing was going on in another market, it would be front page news as well. And so I don't think it's any more difficult. I think that's a misnomer. Are there more guys down at practice here than in other areas? Yes. There's no question about that. We have, now that, blogging and everything else, I mean, you don't have to be from one of the major newspapers or a major network to get accreditation and be a part of all of this. And a lot of that is sensational. You get the click, what is it called? Clickbait. Yeah, clickbait. Whatever the hell. I'm not privy to a lot of the stuff that goes on the internet. And I'm trying to say, and you just go, and yeah, you end up clicking, you go, well, that's really stupid. And, and if you're a fan, I think you understand that. But no, I don't think it's any more difficult. I really don't.
All right. Before we move on, and listen, you've covered some great teams, and there's been some great teams in Toronto, and it's been such a long time. It's just hard to believe that they haven't won a cup in as long as it's been. Where's this team? Is this team good enough to do it? I mean, you look at some of the teams you've broadcasted over the years. Where are they? Are they as good as any team you covered, or are there still some significant holes that could prevent them from getting it done this year?
I think Brad Treliving, arriving on the scene at the time that he did, and certainly having Craig Berube arrive last year, was instrumental. They had tried to kind of reinvent the wheel a little bit and go with complete skill and try to be more skillful than your opponent. And in the playoffs, a very valuable lesson was taught to Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe, that you can't play one way throughout the course of the season and then try to switch the light switch and change to the heavy game that teams play in the postseason. And so our defense was never very big. It wasn't very physical. We didn't have a physical aspect to the forwards. That has changed. We are a much bigger team. We are a much more physical team. We block shots. Our goaltending has been good, as we talked about earlier. And we still have that skill that's still there. And that's the core, the Tavarises, the Marners, the Matthews, the Nylanders, that have to produce and feel comfortable in the postseason. I really like this team because we have played that way, playoff style hockey right from the get-go. Craig Berube walked in a very, very beneficial time to have all of this skill there and then have all of the other attributes being added thanks to the general manager to be able to go into the room and say, okay, boys, this didn't work. It hasn't worked. This is a really good team that over the course of the regular season puts up magnificent numbers, but it has to change. And maybe 3 or 4 years ago, everybody would have said, no, it doesn't. We can still play this way. But because it hasn't, he had a captivated room understanding, yeah, let's try this. Let's buckle down. Let's play differently. And they have. They've played much differently. Our goals against average, much better. Penalty kill, much better. Offensive numbers, not nearly as big as other times, but then, we've had a lot of injuries, especially with the big guy Matthews being out as much as he has. But this team is playing more playoff-style hockey on a regular nightly basis than it has in the last 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years that these guys have been here, that the core has been together. And so now when it's time to flip the switch, it's not as big a switch. It's not, they can make the adjustment to move into a real playoff mode, and it's not going to take an awful lot of adjusting to do that.
Yeah, they're not going to have to reinvent themselves. And Chief has certainly brought that to the table in terms of what he's, obviously.
When he was brought in, they had a press conference and he was up there and being introduced and talking to the media. And he had that wonderful Craig Berube scowl going and whatnot. And anyway, afterwards, he walked out and he was at the practice rink and he walked into the dressing room. I walked in after him by ourselves. So I said, all right, enough of that. Get rid of the scowl. how are you? And of course, I got the big laugh and the big hug and the handshake and everything. And I said to him, I said, and the wonderful part about the Chief is that he still believes that the big trade with Calgary and Toronto so many years ago was him for Doug Gilmour straight up. And everything else was just a throw-in, right? Just kind of augmented it. But he's brought that mentality. He's brought that style of play, and the fact that he was one of those guys. That's how he had to play. And so when that scowl comes down the bench and looks at you, I think it has a bigger impact on everybody. And he's a wonderful individual, as you know.
Yeah.
And he's done a great job so far here in Toronto.
Yeah, he's the best. All right, so the big news the other day, you took your first day off in 43 years to go watch the Notre Dame National Championship game.
I wasn't on a consecutive game streak by any. I've had to take time off for illness and my mother's passing, but no, this was the first time I ever asked for a day off.
Hey, so you're not Kyle Ripken, you're saying?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Jimmy Ralph is. Jimmy's gone 27 games and 27 years and never missed a game.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder. We should take a poll of who's gone the longest broadcasters without missing a game. That's amazing. But you did, ask for time off. When did that first cross your mind? Was it when the playoffs started? You said, "Hey, if they get to the final, the championship game, I see the Leafs are playing that night. It would be great." Or was it when they got to the semis? Like, when did you first start? And did your son bring it up to you? Like, you had 4 sons, right? So
4 boys. My dad passed on the allegiance to the Fighting Irish. We're not Catholic. We're not overly religious, but he never got to go down to South Bend to see a game. 29 years ago, I started packaging up the lads in a motorhome with. We used to have 4 fathers and 8 sons, 12 of us in a motorhome. And off we'd go to South Bend to go to a football game. And we've done that for 29 years. I've taken them to Dublin, Ireland in 2012 to see them play Navy. Last year, we went to the opener at Texas A&M. We've become huge fans. We really have. And anybody that has ever gone to South Bend and gone and toured the campus and gone to the grotto, I mean, I don't talk to my dad like that unless I'm at his gravesite, but I'll go to the grotto 6 o'clock in the morning when we're there, and I'll have a nice conversation about my sons and his grandsons and now his great grandchildren. And so it means a lot to us. And I've passed on that to my 4 boys who are enormous Notre Dame fans. And as Lou Holtz would say, get it. What was the line? You said, if you go to Notre Dame, you'll have to understand it. And if you don't get it. And if you don't get it, you'll never get it. And so we have it. We enjoyed it. And so we talked about it. Yeah, what about this? And I said, well, I kind of did it as a lark, wondering if they would allow me to, but our program director with the radio station, one of the radio stations that we're on here at TSN, said, let me work on it. I thought, oh, great, okay. And so when he got back to me, I think he understood sort of the connection that we have and everything. And so they said, well, are you going to go to the game? I said, I wouldn't go unless I could take all of my sons. And that was going to be a large problem. But we all got here hollering and screaming at the TV and enjoying it. And you had to get there to get disappointed. We were disappointed, but we're looking forward to next year already.
So you stayed at your house.
Yep.
What was on the menu? What were you guys eating during the game?
We did the barbecue up real well. We tailgated, right? Okay. I mean, we were here probably about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We got the cocktails roaring and everything else. We were right into it. It was great. We all got into our Notre Dame gear and had a lot of fun with it.
I love it. Joe, it's been a pleasure, man. Honestly, I've always wanted to have you on. And I don't know how much longer you want to do this. I hope you do this as long as you want to do it. And I hope you never stop, to be honest with you, because it's a pleasure listening to you and Jim and everything you guys do. And it would be great to hear you call a Stanley Cup final one of these days and see the Maple Leafs, bring it home for you and everybody else in Toronto who have been diehard fans or work with the team all these years and haven't been able to experience that. So I hope you get that chance one day. And who knows, maybe this is the year, Joe. But thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it very much.
My pleasure. Say hi to everybody in St. Louis, and please give Curtis Joseph my absolute best.
I will, Joe. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Take care. That's Joe Bowen. Great stuff from him. Appreciate it very much. Brought to you by Lordo's Diamonds. Hey, get that special someone, something special in your life. Valentine's Day is just around the corner. And you're looking to pop the question. Now is the best time of the year to pop the question. Why not have Mike and Jimmy Lordo take care of you? They can certainly do that. Right next to Truffles in the heart of Ladue, 314-432-8008. LordosDiamonds.com. Arco Construction taking St. Louis hockey to the next level. One ice rink at a time. They built that beautiful Centene Community Ice Center where the Blues are practicing later on this morning. They built the two-sheet facility in Chesterfield, the Maryville University ice rink. They built a Shark Tank. They built Putt Shack and Topgolf. They bring the fun to St. Louis as well. Jeff Cook, John Comlos, everybody there with Arco Construction brings you hockey sense each and every week here on, well, actually live from the Half Coast Studios. All right, let's step aside. Jamal Mayers. I hate leaving him, man. I hope he's not mad at me. I got to go get him out of the green room, bring him in. Great hockey talk coming your way with Jammer next. Here on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Don't go anywhere. All right, let's bring in Jamal Mayers. First, I want to start off with Jammer here because we went to, where we had dinner last week, Twin Oaks.
Yes. How was it? How nice is that?
Oh my God, very nice. I didn't know what to anticipate when we went there because I just hadn't been to it yet. Sending Chris Saraceno a text, I'm like, hey, you guys do it right over here. It was great, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, so Bartolino's, right?
Yeah, they've stepped up. I mean, amazing decor, ambiance.
Yeah.
Space is really cool and unique.
We were in a private room.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It was beautiful. So we had a great time
there.
Was
it Grandma's birthday celebration?
Yeah, my mother-in-law's birthday. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, 75. Big shout out to Jolinda.
That's awesome. I'm surprised you were, good for you. You were invited.
I know. That's always a good sign.
Late ad or what?
Yeah.
It's always the date.
But the food was fantastic. Great experience, great customer service. Wait staff was great. The manager was great. They got TVs there too. So we kept checking on the Buffalo Bills game too, see what the score was. So great spot. Get to all the Bartolinos, right? All the locations, including the newest one in Twin Oaks.
It's unbelievable food, great atmosphere, great people. Mm-hmm. Family owned, they do it right.
Yeah, no doubt. Blues lose last night to Vegas. It's kind of like on again, off again. That's been the Blues season all season long. And there are stretches where you feel like they've got it together and they're playing really good hockey, but the record is what it is, and all you have to do is go through the schedule and say, okay, yeah, it feels like they're playing much better, but they can't put a winning streak together of more than 2 games.
They haven't won 3 games in a row all year. That is not a good sign. And I think I said it on the last time we were on that they're going to have to go on a streak of 3 streaks or more, probably 3 of 5 wins in a row to get to where they have to get into the playoffs. A team like Vegas have been struggling of late, but they defend. Mm-hmm. And they are a team that sacrifices. You just look at the numbers and they're really telling. The Blues had 22 shots blocked. The Blues blocked 6. So 22-6. Mm-hmm. They make you pay for the interior of the ice, and those second chance opportunities are hard to come by. And it's interesting because as you approach the break, teams have to make the determination of where are we going, what are we right now. And I'm really interested to see what direction the Blues go in because you know how this is. And when you're in that middle ground mm-hmm. between 17 and 22, meaning you're not in the playoffs mm-hmm. and you're kind of close, mm-hmm. you're actually further away than you think. The teams that are like, I would argue that are 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, may be closer
Mm-hmm.
to becoming better, because unless you're the Red Wings of the 90s, you have to develop your roster through the draft. And the only way to do that is to have poor seasons. Because New Jersey, Pittsburgh, all the teams you can think of that have had success and won cups
Mm-hmm.
had those years where they were bad.
Detroit too, right?
Detroit, yeah.
Chicago,
Yes. And so
L.A. I mean, there's been a lot of teams.
And so you wonder, like, okay, I get it, right? It's a business. You want to the money in the playoffs is no joke. That's real money. I'm not even sure what that number is per game for a home game, but it's a lot of money,
Yeah.
and it's cash. And so you wonder where that balance is, and between what Army's trying to accomplish and his vision, because he's got to look 5 years out.
Yeah.
What Steiner's vision is and what he wants this to be, and how much say he has come in the next month or two is going to be important. I'm interested to know that. And then you've got a coach that is ready to win now.
Yeah. It's
So
interesting.
it's a lot of moving parts.
I agree with what you're saying about 28, 29, 30. You may be closer than the teams that are just outside the playoff picture now. But the Blues are interesting because they're just outside the playoff picture, but they built up assets and prospects that you would typically find with teams that are at the bottom of the barrel, that are drafting high, right? Because of all the trades they've made, getting first-round picks. Now, they haven't had the top 5 picks. They got the Dvorsky kid at 10, and most of the other picks have been, in that 20 range or north of 20. But they think they've got some good players that they've got later in the draft that were stars of the World Juniors and whatever. And, we'll see what a guy like Jakob Stansel looks like once he turns pro. He's having a great year in the Western League. They got him in the 4th round, and he led the World Juniors in goal scoring. He was phenomenal. But, with Snuggerud, who's having a great year at Minnesota, I would imagine we'll see him at some point this season whenever his team is eliminated from the NCAA tournament, or if they win the championship, we'll see. And then you get the Swedes. You've got the Stenberg now is over here. Lindstein will be here eventually. Those are 2 first-round picks. They've got some pieces that they can look forward to. But at the end of the day, you can't expect these kids to come here when they're 19, 20 years of age and just be ready to perform like they've been in the league for 5 or 6 years either. So that's going to take some time. So, but I agree with what you're saying, though. It is because that's where the Blues have been the last couple of years when they're missing the playoffs. They haven't put themselves in a situation where they miss, and now they're looking at, getting a blue chip prospect in the draft by drafting in the top 5. It's hard to do. Like Colorado did all those years where they're getting 1st and 2nd overall picks.
That's the challenge. The challenge is rebuilding on the fly, which it appears that they're doing. But all those players that you mentioned, to me, are 3-4 years away from being what you want them to be.
Not from getting in a Blues jersey, but in terms of,
of impact.
Impacting.
And I think that's why you've seen this kind of, not stall in a sense, but there's no sense in building your bottom, perfect bottom 6, perfect 4th line when your team's not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you can look at the bottom 6 and wonder, like, okay, they're not having the impact that we need. But your team isn't really there to go get those guys. And typically for me, those guys are veteran guys that have established roles and can understand who they are and can contribute killing penalties and chip in offensively on winning teams.
Yeah.
I just don't think if people are expecting that. I would be surprised if the Blues are close or just in the playoffs if they make those types of moves that people as fans want them to make. I would be very surprised if they do that. I think that they're either going to stand pat and make it or not make it.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe at the least they make a decision to shed some salary and some players, particularly on the back end with the development of some of these younger players in the near future to make room for to have roles, that can last you another next, 3, 4, 5 years.
Get you through.
Yeah.
I don't want to play Monday morning quarterback, but what did you think of Hover starting yesterday?
Very surprised. And the reason being is because you need these points. It would not be the start I would have chosen, if I'm being honest. I think the perception as a player when you're playing one of the top teams is like, we want our horse in there. Not saying he played poorly. I'm not saying I just, as a player, I would be like, man, I wish Pinner was in there.
Mm.
No,
Even though
I'm not going
Hofer
to say that.
yeah, and they
I'll
split
let him.
between Hofer and Bennington in the back-to-back games they had recently against Calgary. Both those games were at home. But you had a couple days off here between the Las Vegas game. They won the game on the road. Whenever I see Vegas and they're one of the top teams in the league, to me that screams that's Jordan Bennington's game, right?
Yes, at home. I don't know. To me, that I think sometimes coaches have a plan
Mm-hmm.
for the rotation. It's different than in the years past.
Yeah.
It's more of a feel. I think sometimes, this is my opinion, they have a set plan and they just literally follow that plan.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it's important to like
Correct. You're right.
just adjust
Mm-hmm.
because of your feeling.
Yeah, they didn't make that decision the day before the game.
No, I think that was pre-planned.
100%. And Davey Alexander is typically great at that. And Hofer is a really good goaltender. He's very capable, you know? I mean, he has had a number of games where he's allowed a goal on the first shot against. And last night, the turnover by Fowler. But I hate to say it, but I mean, at that stage of the game, 19 seconds in, you'd like to get a save there.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
And that is his job to stop the puck there. And it was a great play by Stone, but I didn't feel like he made a great play on the goal. It just kind of
Yeah.
snuck through him.
That's
We've talked about it before. I mean, Thomas is, well, what are you seeing from Robert Thomas right now? And Buchnevich. To me, Buchnevich isn't healthy. That's
yeah. I
said
think you're
that the
seeing
first time,
someone who's
but-
perhaps a little bit frustrated. Doesn't necessarily, have the same feeling. I think that the internal competition is good, but I always think like at what cost,
Mhm.
right? He's your best player. You're not going to have team success without him having success. So I see frustration. I think that maybe it could stem from the change in the power play, and that bleeds into your 5-on-5 chemistry wise with line mates. To me, if he's not your best player every night, you're not making the playoffs anyway. So to me, the decision is probably being talked about within the room. I'm certain it is with the coaches, is like, how do we get Thomas going? Are we going to have to split up that line to get him going, even though they're having success?
You're talking about the Kyrou,
Yeah,
Holloway, Shen.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or do we give him a few more games to see if they can't get it together offensively? And I think that decision has to be made quickly.
Yeah. I think if you talk to any elite player in the league, or if you evaluate any elite center in the league, where do you stand on? Well, it's their job to make others around them better. I mean, you're not always gonna play with other types. It shouldn't matter who you're playing with when you are an elite player. You should be able to produce no matter who you're playing with. And it's not like he's playing with fourth line guys. I mean,
Yeah, that's fair. I think he needs someone with a little bit more pace. He likes to slow things down. I think that's why he has success with players that play with pace. I think nothing against Buchnevich, but he's not the most fleet of foot. He's more of a cerebral, inside the dots, below the hash marks kind of. And I think that, Thomas needs someone to push the pace, to give him that space to create off the rush.
Neighbors isn't going to do that either, right?
He's very capable, but they're very similar to me, the way they play.
Mhm.
I think he needs someone with a little bit more pace, is my
Okay.
opinion.
Yeah. It's interesting. Because I do think they're a good team. I do. Like when they win games, they beat good teams. They've lost to some bad teams, and there are games where you just feel like this is the turning point, and they just can't string it together. Does that become a mental thing?
No, but I would argue that they're a good team, but I think you have to be a great team to make the playoffs.
Mhm.
I mean, it's 32 teams. I mean, it's good teams win more than 2 games in a row.
Yeah.
You
It's crazy.
So
They've
just-
had 5 chances to win that third game. They haven't been able to do it.
and that's just, you got to dig in. I don't know.
So let me ask
probably
you this,
frustrating for
because I think that what you said is 100% right. The coaching staff is discussing that. I mean, Kyrou's line has been so productive. They've been so good. They get another goal last night. I mean, Kyrou was +1. He's +12 on the season now.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, and he's got 21 goals and 21 assists. He's been very balanced. And he and Holloway are so good together. Shen has elevated his game. Shen can be very streaky, and he's going through a good run right now where he's producing and putting up points. I think he had 6 goals in 11 games going into last night. 9 points in 11 games, something like that. So obviously he's feeling good about himself. But as a coach, I mean, you got one line playing at a high level. They've been one of the most effective lines in the league over the last little stretch. It's easy to leave that alone, though, right? I mean, how do you balance that?
I think like I said, I think you got to be careful because it's about wins. And if they're having success, but you're not winning, then you may have to change it. To me, you keep guys in pairs. So maybe
Keep Holloway and Kyrie together.
Yeah, you keep Holloway. Yeah, keep those together. Maybe you keep Thomas and Buchnevich together, and maybe you figure out someone else to go instead of Neighbors to create
Well,
some
they've
pairs.
tried Saad. They've tried Neighbors. You know, to me, the flip would be Shen and Thomas if you want to put Thomas up there with Kyrie. And
No, I think that messes with the dynamic of what Shen provides for
those two guys. Yeah, and he's winning faceoffs too and doing a lot of. I mean, he's creating a lot of space for those guys.
Yeah, I think he understands his role in that line.
But I just don't think you're splitting up Kyrie and Holloway is what I'm getting at. You know?
No,
you know.
No, I don't think. I think that to me it's pairs. I always love that, keeping in the pairs and figure that out and tinker with, because guys like that too, right? They know. No offense, but they like the fact that they're with one guy.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week, but to your point, they're not winning. And I know they like this balance. They think they're getting on the power play, but they're not winning games. Even though the power play is producing at a higher rate, and they're scoring some power play goals on a more frequent basis than they were before. But I think that's where. And listen, Thomas is a big boy. He's making $8 million. Like, that should not be as big of an issue. But I mean, human nature tells you that it probably is when he's just not generating the same confidence off the power play. These guys know who they're playing with. They want to play with the best players.
I can assure you that it's bothering him. Okay, like the top players want to be on the top unit, and the top unit's the unit that's producing. And so the question that he's probably asking is, do I not make that top unit even better? And it's like the question. I'll give you the same analogy, a different analogy. When the team is on a roll and wins 3 or 4 games in a row, but a really good player is now becoming healthy, do you put him in the lineup, or do you not disrupt that because you want to keep the same continuity? No, the answer is you put the better player in the lineup because that's the better player.
Yeah.
It's the same thought process for me. Even though the power play is having success, you have your best player not on that unit, then you have to create one top unit, and he has to be on it.
Yeah.
I
talked about that in the first segment because I think Nick Leddy is, he feels like he's ready to go. Like, he felt like he was ready to go going into last night's game. Obviously, they made the decision, so they know more. They've got more information in terms of where he's at health-wise and whatnot. So they may say he's not ready. He may tell me he's ready in the other.
It's classic player team dynamic where the player thinks he's ready.
So I'm not second-guessing the team on that one.
No, it's just what he's saying, and it's calculating. He's a veteran guy. He's letting everyone know, I'm ready to go. They've probably already communicated to him, you're not playing till this date. But he wants them to know he's ready to go.
And maybe tomorrow night's the night he gets back in there.
Yeah, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't read too much into it.
So, the deadline, listen, I don't start thinking about the deadline for another 2-3 weeks because I like you said, you get into that Four Nations break, you'll have an idea then. But for the Blues, you look at where they're at in the standings. I mean, they could still go on a run. Is there anything that would give you confidence to believe that they can do that?
No, they haven't done it all year. They keep teasing you with winning a game, winning a second game, and then they don't win a third game.
Yeah.
Like, they've got to find a way to put some games together. And I think that the tough part about having a break within the season like this, like you're having this year and it's similar to Olympic years, is that the way you go into the break isn't necessarily the way you're coming out of the break. So it becomes even more important for you to go into the break playing well. At least you then have the feeling that you're playing well coming out of the break.
Yeah, it's important.
It's just, I'm telling you, it messes with your mind. The urgency, the feeling that you have on that break, it changes the entire dynamic as a group. I think psychologically it's so important to go into the break on a roll.
And I think that psychologically it's important that Binnington plays well in the Four Nations too.
Yes.
I mean, he's under the microscope. The goaltending position's under the microscope. Canada's under the microscope after the World Junior performance. and people are saying goaltending is their weakness. I mean, it would be huge for him to go in there and play unbelievable and come back with a ton of confidence. And the opposite of that could be detrimental too for his psyche.
Yeah, I'm not worried about him.
No, I know.
yeah.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying, just in general. I mean,
Yeah, I think that it's probably overstated to suggest that U.S. has better goaltenders overall. Yeah, that's fine. I put a premium on champions.
mhm,
I put a premium on goalies who win.
yeah,
Um,
they don't know. People don't
I
really
might
watch.
I might be crazy because people in hockey might disagree with me. It always bothers me that Lundqvist is revered so much, and I know he won Olympic gold. And then you've got Corey Crawford over here who won 2 Stanley Cups,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I'll take the winner.
Would you?
Yeah, I'll take the winner. And so
And Lundqvist did go to a final.
okay, didn't win.
Yeah.
I put a huge premium for goalies when they finish the job
Yeah.
and they win.
So in their prime, you take Jonathan Quick over Lundqvist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Winners.
Nothing wrong with that.
I'm not suggesting he's not a fantastic goaltender.
And people forget they've been very critical of Connor Hellebuck with his playoff performances, and now all of a sudden he's the guy.
That's my point.
And entering the tournament.
That's my
well,
point.
let's see him do that.
Winners won
The
the cup
pressure's on.
and took his team and
Yeah.
won the Stanley
I do
Cup.
feel like this tournament, like USA is going to come out like their hair's on fire. They're just going to play so hard and so crazy. Like they want that young group. They're going to play so hard. I've talked to some of the Canadian guys. They don't seem all that into it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that they won't be. I haven't talked to McDavid and I haven't talked to Nathan McKinnon and Makar and those guys, but there's a few others. Like I just don't know where they don't know what they're playing for. They don't know if it's a trophy, is it a medal? They don't know. Like it's kind of like, okay, Russia's not in it, the Czech Republic's not in it. So it's just not providing the same type of motivation that maybe an Olympic tournament would.
And you've been around a long time enough to know that Saturday night in Montreal, Canada versus USA,
It's going to be
both teams will be ready. It will be
Oh yeah.
unbelievable atmosphere, and they will be playing with like their hair is on
Yeah.
fire, and it'll be amazing. to
Especially when
watch.
you get to the championship round.
Yeah, it's going to be unbelievable.
Okay.
It's going to be.
Maybe Finland and Sweden will end up going to the final game.
That would be disastrous. We all want Canada, USA.
Oh yeah. Everybody wants that.
And you know what? I'm excited for USA hockey to think about. What's interesting to me is, no disrespect to Sean Podine and Joel Otto and guys like that, but the last time, anytime, it was always tough for US to fill out that fourth line.
Mhm.
Now you look at the roster and you look at who they left off with.
There you go.
You're like, wow.
Clayton
you-
Keller left off. Tage Thompson left off.
yeah, and Cole Caulfield, right?
Yeah, Cole Caulfield left.
There's so many like amazing players.
Mhm.
You couldn't say that 25 years ago.
No.
Right? So it's an exciting time for, like you mentioned, what's happened with the juniors and the U.S. winning back to back, and
Yeah.
and Canada's in flux and what's going on there, and Canada's going to want to show that they're still at the top, and the U.S. is about want to say that they're at the top. So
I know. I'm
really
watching
cool.
that Jack Eichel too. He's so damn good. And Noah Hannafin's good too. And Petro can still play. And like it's there's a lot of
And
players.
don't underestimate Sweden,
Yeah, no,
because
for sure.
tactically they're going to play a very disciplined brand, and they'll be out to prove people wrong
I've
too.
said before that I feel like they are at a disadvantage because their coach, and I could be wrong, he's not an NHL coach. And he doesn't coach in the NHL, so maybe he may feel like he knows the players. I mean, I just feel like there's an opportunity for other countries, John Cooper, Mike Sullivan. These guys can outcoach this guy. Just knowing the players and knowing how to coach that NHL style of hockey that you're going to see.
Well, I do think it becomes more important in the NHL versus the tournament style. And the reason why I say that is that I always find it takes coaches a once through to coach against other
Okay.
coaches,
Yeah,
where they're like, he got me there, and
He
that
got
they're
me.
like, I
Yeah.
shouldn't have let that happen. And then they start to understand
Mhm.
what the other coaches, their tendencies and what they like to do. It takes a whole pass through of the whole league before coaches kind of figure it out, where they go to school and understand like, he got me there.
All right, a couple things real quick. So Arbor Jack Eye made some comments to Ryan Reeves. Ryan Reeves just trying to fight Jack Guy. I think it was second period. It was a 3-0 game at the time, and he said no. And then the Leafs come back, they score 7 goals, and Reeves makes a comment after the game and says, well, I hope he remembers that when he's older and he's, somebody's trying to ask him for one. He doesn't give him one and whatever. And I've heard other players say, well, Jack Guy shouldn't have given it to him.
No, should not.
In that situation. Why give them momentum?
Absolutely not. 3-0, no.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely not. No, I think, listen, Reeves is frustrated. It's hard for him to get a fight.
He got one against Olivier the other day.
Yeah, he did. He's kind of rusty, got knocked down one time, but he's certainly a really tough customer, and I would argue one of, if not the toughest guys in the league.
Who's that?
Reeves. So
so is Olivier.
It's a tough situation. It's a 3-0 game. I don't like the gesture. If I had an argument, I don't like the gesture. The gesture that he made about physically pointing to the scoreboard, what put Reeves? It's the showmanship.
It's junior hockey.
It's like, don't do that. You could say that to him. I'm not fighting you. It's 3-0.
Yeah.
But to point, so the entire fan, the whole, you're trying to get yourself off the hook. So the whole,
do that to a 35-year-old who's played over 8
you know what I mean? I
games,
don't think that's right.
Don't do that.
I don't like that part. I think telling him, hey, if it's 3-2,
yeah,
if you guys score 2,
yeah,
we'll go.
Hey, buddy, I can't do it now.
I'm not doing it now. I give you momentum. That makes no sense.
No, I can't.
Or if you wanted to fight, we should have done it when it's 0-0.
Correct.
So that's what I would have said. But I think that it was prudent not to fight in that moment. But once it was tied, he probably should have.
Yeah. I'm with you. Real quick, we had Joe Bowen on earlier. Are the Leafs, they lose 5-1 to Columbus. I mean, they're kind of going back and forth. They've got an injury at the goaltender position.
Terrible goaltending in that game.
Yeah, and then he got sent down. They brought in Matt Murray.
He was terrible.
Who are they? Who are the Leafs?
They're a legit playoff team.
Are they a legit contender for Stanley Cup?
Yes.
Okay.
They're going to be a tough out.
Okay.
They are not the same Leafs team from a year ago.
In what way?
Well, they have the personality of their coach, and they have what I believe is the right captain who has an emotional investment. Not saying that Tavares doesn't, but I think that I like when our captain has some bite, and it has nothing to do with fight. You look at a guy with passion like Al McInnes, Prong, or Joel Thornton. There's a bite to them. There's a bite to Matthews. I think he's developed.
Ginla.
That he doesn't. I don't know if Tavares necessarily has. He's an unbelievable player, Hall of Famer, certainly, but not. I just like that.
Yeah,
it's a different team with a different leader who plays the right way, and they get capable goaltending. They're comfortable now playing those low event games.
Yeah, no question. All right, Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, Jamal.
Yeah, unbelievable. The way that they treat their customers is just remarkable. It's family-owned business. They have 43 locations, and Dobbs is offering winter tire deals on best tire brands, including $275 savings on Goodyear tires, plus other money-saving deals on sets of Cooper, Continental, BF Goodrich tires. No matter what you drive, a car, light truck, van, SUV, EV, hybrid, Dobbs' team of experienced tire technicians and ASE certified associates service them all. Go to Dobbs.com for more.
Yeah, and we talked about Bartolino's, obviously.
We did.
Yeah, so check it out. How many locations?
5 now.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Family owned, been in business for over 50 years. Like I always say, 2 places to dine.
All right.
Home or Bartolino's.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And check out that Twin Oaks location too. First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week. Hey, listen, they are the #1 auto lender. In case you didn't know, they do everything, including the auto lending. So check this out. First Community, #1 lender for new and used autos, according to Experian Auto Count. I mean, that's all you need to know. Not just in Missouri, but in Illinois as well. Plus in other counties of eligibility too as well. Great rates, convenient loan application. You can apply right on your phone. It's very easy. First Community, your auto loan rate is the same whether you're buying new or used. Not many can say that either. Sometimes you get a better loan when it's a new car versus a used car. This way, it doesn't even change. It doesn't matter. So if you're in the market for a car, tell your dealer, do the loan with First Community. Blue Note Roofing, David Novak. How's your roof, by the way?
It's like 4 years old. It's good.
Just making sure.
We're good.
Just making sure. Making sure. When you need one, you call David Novak.
Absolutely.
314-920-5713. Call David Novak today. Roofing, gutters, soffit, fascia, everything. So check that out. Look for the yellow car with the blue notes. Can't miss it. Big yellow truck, blue notes. David Novak, the best in the business. He'll talk pucks with you as well. All right, we thank Aiden and everybody here at Half Coast Studios for helping us get on and off with off the air here with Hockey Sense. We appreciate it. Every Friday, it's our Friday tradition. We continue talking pucks here on Hockey Sense. Have a great weekend, everybody.